for Monday and Tuesday, with temps in the high teens. More news as it happens on 5AA.
Make the best ever move at Balmoral Retirement Village. 24/7 emergency call and security for extra peace of mind. This is Peter Godfrey.
All right, 9 minutes past. Oh, gosh, look at the time. Where's it gone? 7 degrees at the moment. Just quickly, too, Vic follows up just that news that apparently the Rolling Stones are going into the studio to record a new album. Vic says, does the studio that the Stones plan to record in have wheelchair ramps for them? Just kidding, he says. And he wonders whether there'll be some session musos playing with them on the album too. More will come to light, I guess, fairly soon on that. Let's head to New Zealand, find out what's happening across the ditch. Selwyn Manning, editor of EveningReport.nz. How are you this morning, Selwyn?
Yeah, very good, Peter.
So, sun shining there in your part of the world?
It certainly is a nice morning this morning. You probably pick it up from the liveliness in my voice.
So you've been up early and taken the dog for a walk. What's your name, Blake?
He hasn't had his walk yet, but we've been out and about.
Oh, good.
In the car, and he'll have a good gallop later on.
Okay.
But it looks a good day. Probably heading for around about 16, 17 degrees. I understand in the weekend we'll start to reach to those dizzy heights of around 18 or 19, so well behind what you were last weekend for yourselves over there in South Australia.
29.3, I think that's what it was on Sunday anyway, somewhere around there. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful, but and then hailstorms yesterday.
Just to keep you humble.
Yeah, keep us guessing all the time. Yeah. Hey, since we last spoke, we've got a new Prime Minister. I'm sure you're aware. It all took us by surprise late Monday. But already, what many are describing as a bromance developing between Malcolm Turnbull and your Prime Minister John Key.
Yeah, that's right. Certainly, Malcolm Turnbull made sure that John Key was on the radar, even in that press conference. If you remember, Peter, exactly right after he assumed the leadership. He mentioned John Key, and there's a quote here. Have you got the quote in front of you, Peter?
Yes. John Key's been able to achieve very significant economic reforms in New Zealand by doing just that, by taking on and explaining complex issues and then making a case for them. Yeah, so that was sort of in his speech where he was saying that he'll explain things more clearly. I guess almost a bit of a dig at Tony Abbott, perhaps.
So back here in New Zealand, there were a few raised eyebrows over that particular part about citing John Key and the reasons for his successes and strengths in the polls here in New Zealand. Now, it's for many New Zealanders, pundits, political analysts, etc., it's been a very, very difficult thing to really get down to figuring out why John Key enjoys that kind of leadership. But John Key, in reply to Malcolm Turnbull this week, he said that he stated the obvious really here, both he and Malcolm Turnbull were both moderates at the centre of their respective national and liberal parties. And John Key underscored too that both he and Malcolm Turnbull come from an investment banking background. And I think it was Goldman Sachs with respect to your new Prime Minister, and it was Merrill Lynch with respect to ours. So there are common grounds there, except for John Key's nickname at Merrill Lynch was the Smiling Assassin.
Oh.
So I think there's parting of the kind of reputational ways there. But the Labour leader over here in New Zealand, Andrew Little, on the surface of it, he sounds rather peeved, Peter. And one thing that I think the opposition party, the Labour Party, does not like is accolades coming from overseas for the national-led Prime Minister John Key. It's almost like putting salt in their eyes, because they suffer this popularity in New Zealand, and to hear it from another side of the world is taking it too far for them. So bear that in mind. But from Little's comments here, but he basically said that John Key has presided over 7 deficits, growing public debt, and an economy that did not have much to show for 7 years of national government. And he added, and obviously this is where the peevish part comes in, he says, if that's Malcolm Turnbull's ambitions, then I pity Australia, end of quote.
Oh, yeah, Andrew Little and Bill Shorten will certainly be forming a bromance too.
Yeah, bromance is all round, Peter.
Yeah.
Bromance is all round. That was the headline, by the way. You know, your listeners probably didn't pick it up. That was one of the headlines of New Zealand's biggest newspaper, the New Zealand Herald, was, bromance in evidence. But we've got to remember that Tony Abbott, when he was early in his prime ministerial role, he referred to John Key as his soulmate. That's
right, yeah.
Which people think. But if you're standing, what I'll try to do here, Peter, is I'll try to stand back from it all, which is, not easy at times, is it? When you're in the middle of all the political kind of turns and things. But John Key's magic, and just observing, and this is basically me talking here, so take it for what you like. But it's his common touch. Like for example, he can mix it with people in the street. He's very comfortable with people he doesn't know, people from all walks of life. That doesn't necessarily mean he represents their interests, but he can certainly engage with them. He can, for example, he's got a very comfortable sense of humour. He doesn't mind looking like an absolute idiot, as long as it's seen within the context of comedy. And he'll do a comedy routine in a one-on-one kind of situation. Very popular in that way. But he can also have a crowd in stitches like a stand-up comedian in a hall of thousands. There's that part of his personality, and many have said that he's taken the stuffiness out of governance.
He's almost, in a way, he's almost a conservative version of our, Bob Hawke, that common blokey kind of a personality. Different sides of politics, but kind of similar sort of personality style.
Yeah, you guys would know better, obviously, than I would there. Bob Hawke seemed to know when to absolutely drive a particular thing, just from observations from this side of the ditch. And I know at that time there was no love lost between our Prime Minister David Longy and Bob Hawke. They just did not get on. And there were two distinct types of agendas running there, particularly at the nuclear issue, I think. But so Bob Hawke on this side of the ditch has been kind of coloured by the relationships between the two. Certainly, that government. Well, you guys had stability, didn't you? For many, many years between. But getting back to Key, the other thing is the other side of his getting into the politics of his talents or otherwise. He isn't a technocrat. I would underline that he's no technocrat. As far as when it comes to detail to the press gallery, he can be extremely good. If he's been quizzed on detail outside of that arena, he often will become vague and simplify things down. Now, whether or not he's trying to, as Malcolm Turnbull may have suggested, speak to the person in the street,
the average person,
by simplifying things down, he often will just simply avoid. And he's intelligent, but he seems to be reticent to engage on intelligent debate. And indeed, there is a pattern with John Key where when he has been confronted, for example, with rational, robust inquiry, at times he will demonise the person who's inquiring. He'll often relegate the person into a political context and say things like, they're just a Green Party voter. And where, for example, it might be a person from a literature background who was debating whether or not the arts are getting their rightful amount of funds or whatever. It might be a scientist from a university who is calculating the impact of the government's policies in climate change or something like that. Well, John Key will often try to relegate the person into having an ulterior motive. So there's quite a different kind of mix of things there that John Key is seen over here. But boy, he has been able, even when the government, his government, has been seen to not deliver on their major reform packages, and he has not delivered on things like the Resource Management Act, which really a sizable amount of the centre-right voting public, and certainly the business community was expecting and demanding that his party do. They just simply have not done that.
Yeah.
There have been many examples of where it looks like the wheels have fallen off, the overreaching of the surveillance and spy state in New Zealand. But John Key, through that engaging part of his personality, appears to have been able to resolve the concerns and angst amongst the general public. It's an absolute phenomenon of which has got most people confused. But I must say that it is not, and I think it's fair and reasonable to say from this side of the ditch that his successes are not down to him explaining and getting people along with the ride through explaining the detail or the purpose of controversial policy.
Okay, makes you wonder too, given that Turnbull, did acknowledge Key in his speech, whether he sort of looked at him over time, maybe with a bit of admiration or I don't know, sort of, maybe modelling himself in a way on him, in just, not all of it, but in just trying to be able to explain and not befuddle people.
The motive, I think, for Turnbull, saying that is only he would know, but it seems like an encouraging thing. That if he's put a line in the sand and saying this is what my leadership is going to be weighed against, what it's going to be measured against, this is the benchmark, and that is effectively communicating with our population, well, that's got to be applauded, doesn't it? In some ways, looking at it from this side of the ditch, Malcolm Turnbull brings to the regional debate in this part of the world an intellectual level above perhaps what we in this country have enjoyed for a long time. We have not reached that level. I think in intellectual, robust debate, one would hope that Malcolm Turnbull's style of leadership will spill over and get some sense out of our lot over this side of the ditch.
Maybe we can both look each way. I don't know.
So it might be the other way as opposed to Kiwis.
I don't know that they've met too many times in person. I think 2009, did I see something? It was the last time they met in person?
Yes.
So they're not...
that's as I understand it too. But I think John Key is absolutely right on the money. It seemed like where Malcolm Turnbull was positioning, as I understand it, Peter, he's quite comfortable with equality in marriage.
Yes. Yeah. Although he's still he supports it, but he's still going to. The Tony Abbott's plan was to have a referendum sometime in the next term of government. He's said that's still in place, that what we do. But he has come out saying previously, he supports it.
So what John Key did in that area is he had the same kind of factional kind of conflicts, where some in the National Party were, no, we can't have this type of thing, and others were quite liberal on that. What John Key did is he massaged a personal kind of approach to it, where it was a conscience vote in the Parliament. And then you saw many of, there was a huge majority of the Nationals here in New Zealand voted in favour of gay marriage, if you want to give it another word. The other thing is interesting, that with John Key, is if there is an issue that the opposition has got hold of and the public is demanding, public outrage on a particular issue and thinking, government, John Key hasn't done anything on this. He just loses no sleep over it. He'll just take the policy, claim it as its own, and roll it out. And it's almost like right from the start, he broke away from this defined left-right type of politics. And if there was something coming from the centre-left that he thought, we'll do that and it'll keep the public on side, he'll do it. So it's almost like some people try to say it's a pragmatic approach to it. Others say it's ad hoc, that there's no grand plan. And if there is a grand plan, what is it? Is it just to stay in power? And then it's an interesting... So there's so much interest on this side of the ditch to round up on the political side and Malcolm Turnbull's rise here. How he did it. It was also fantastically interesting from a political point of view. And there's a lot of respect for Julie Bishop, on this side of the ditch as well.
As there is here, even before this.
they've both got a dream run in a sense that if you look at it from, the Australasian kind of relationship part of things, that, there's a centre-right government here in New Zealand. It's well established, looks like it'll be around for a wee while. And certainly in Australia, you've got the counterpart and perhaps John Key is right, a more centrist, moderate kind of expression of liberal politics. So when Helen Clark and John Howard were in, the relationships between New Zealand and Australia were okay, but they were always a little bit rocky because of the differences in the politics and the approach.
So
and you see that expressed particularly in the Pacific. But interesting times, isn't it?
Absolutely, interesting times. Hey, we might just keep moving on because time is against this other topic. Interesting times ahead, sport-wise, of course, because the Rugby World Cup, only a couple of days away from the... You guys play first, don't you, before Australia does, in your pool? Where have you got...
We play on Monday, by the look of it, and we're playing first up with Argentina, which will be it'll be a good game. But you guys are when's your first?
Our first is Fiji on the 23rd of September, Wednesday, something like that. Yeah. So how's the excitement over there building ahead of the Cup?
It certainly is, and a lot of the coverage has been around what England has been doing is trying to chip away at the All Blacks psyche, get to them in the mind, and they've been evaluating the haka, the traditional haka at the beginning of every game of rugby that the All Blacks play, trying to twist and turn and all sorts of things, and there's been a lot of debate about that now in the press that. Overnight, the All Blacks are saying we're over discussing the haka and we're not going to be talking about that anymore. There's a lot of talk about Australia's performance, anticipating Australia's performance in that terrible pool that you've got. No one would want to be, All Blacks included, would not want to be in the pool that you guys are in with their company there. England, Fiji, Tonga, Georgia, Australia. Whoever comes out of that is going to obviously be very, very strong. And some interesting things here. Jonah Lomu, he's a former All Black of absolute world-class status, and he says that England can win. He seems to be thinking that England, for him, is the favourite.
Yeah.
But then you've got Sir Graham Henry, who is the former coach to the All Blacks that took the All Blacks to win the World Cup last time round. Now, Graham Henry is saying Australia looks to him like it's got the legs to get right through this. Of course, it's all going to be played out on the fields, Peter, isn't it? But I think what is staying there is an awareness that in the rugby championships that were just played in the Southern Hemisphere, South Africa, New Zealand, Australia, Argentina, for example, Australia won that. And I think Australia knows, the view over this side of the ditch is Australia knows how to play a tournament. Mm-hmm. And so let's wait and see. The playing between Australia and Fiji in this side of the ditch and evaluating that shows that Fiji often chokes when it's playing Australia.
Yeah.
And yet Fiji can be a formidable team, similar to France, can throw it around, a real exciting game. And mentioning... But so Wales looks like it's got injury problems. Australia, hasn't got the depth perhaps of England and New Zealand. So if there are injuries or players fall out of form in the tournament, then there's the view over here with the pundits is there will be problems. But if you guys hold on to it, then they're going to be formidable. The All Blacks are fearing the biggest thing that they're fearing is the quarterfinal with the possibility of facing France in Cardiff. And that scares the All Blacks because France is the team that can pull a blinder out and beat the All Blacks on a day. And Cardiff has often been, Cardiff Arms Park has been a place where the All Blacks kind of are wary of for whatever reason. So if the All Blacks, are lucky enough to beat those other ones in their pool and get through to the quarterfinals, and if France is there, that is a game to watch. Certainly, but England and Australia in your pool, they're the ones that it seems like the world is watching to see who comes through there.
Going to be exciting. We will talk more about it next week, I'm sure. So we have to move on because I'm time's against me right here, I'm afraid. Have a great week. Go the Kiwis and the Aussies in the Rugby World Cup. We'll catch you again next week. And, of course, tomorrow morning on breakfast after 6:30.
Okay, Peter.
Have a great week. Thanks. Selwyn Manny, editor of EveningReport.nz.
Get Outback and back again with Isuzu Utes Outback Ready Deals. Tackle the tough terrain with the Isuzu D-Max 4x4 LSU Crew Cab Ute for just $42,990 drive away. Or head off the beaten track with a top-of-the-range 7-seat Isuzu MUX 4x4 Auto for only $50,990.